fatal thought impact, past painful thoughts. In fact, I blast tasteful thoughts and past. I back up my actions, fact don't ask, grab reactions, jacked attack with every word, then act with class as they hear me snap. I got nothing to lose, cause I fought and felt the bruise. Now I'm not the one confused, call the shots and they produce. I ain't lost, I'm finally loose, pick a new silver excuse. I need the views to boost me to a new abuse of being used. Everybody wants a piece now, y'all can rest in peace now. You're dead to me, so peace out. Remember, you're discreet now. Get ready for defeat now.
Alrighty. Hello everybody. This is Kirusho here, and now, whenever we last left off, with this series, quite a bit of things have happened. Now, in the last part, Deku, he hunted down some of the strangest creatures on Yautja Prime. He hunted down the biggest and deadliest creature, Deku being able to take it out in 1v1 combat, and a Yautja actually witnessing and reporting back to the elders about it. The elders of Yautja Prime, they've never seen humans take up roles similar to the way Deku and his part of the humans have been doing. Thanks to Deku showing exactly, humans aren't to be taken lightly anymore, the Yautja, they did somewhat respond kindly to this. Now, Deku, along with him also showing off his powers in a hunt, you do also at least have the xenomorph that spawned from him. The Yautja have been monitoring it and keeping track of it, and after putting it on cryostasis, they were able to determine that this is a deadlier form of xenomorph, since it has these strange human powers that Deku talked about. Now, Deku, he was given a way to track down the engineers in exchange for blood samples of humans that could be used to replicate their powers onto xenomorphs. And while all that's been going on, Deku, he was asked by Iki if they can stay for a festival that will be being held on Yautja Prime. Deku agreeing to it, since his hunters, they don't need to be cooped up in their ship for another 9 months just to spend one day outside. Now, with that out of the way, Deku and the humans did hunt for the next couple days, up until the festival does roll around, and Deku, he does hear a few things about this particular celebration. To the Yautja, this day is very important, since while most Yautja on the planet, they're celebrating it for, well, these reasons or these reasons, you actually have other Yautja who do celebrate it as a way of freedom. And Deku, while he doesn't fully understand it, he is very keen to the idea. The celebration, it is one he does partake in, since not only is he a visitor here, he is practically a Yautja himself now. And these celebrations, anyone can join in on. And that's what Deku and his people do. Since the festival, after it's being held, Deku, he does have quite a bit of fun. And even upon going around the planet and discovering that there are actually some Yautja who are, well, doing challenges and competitions, humans being able to participate in them is not forbidden. And that's something that Deku does find interest in, since the humans, they're able to go about this for the next couple of days and have quite a lot of fun. And there is even whenever people, they do challenge Deku to combat. And Deku, he does partake in this and show exactly how powerful he truly is. Even other humans are able to hold their own against Yautjas. However, when it comes to way more experienced Yautja, the humans, they do at least take a good beating. However, they do at least hold a decent, amount of authority in a battle. And while it is ultimately them getting knocked out, there is at least where Deku is able to maintain the advantage against most. While other older, more experienced Yautja, Deku gets his shit rocked by. Now, with that being said, by the time the humans, they would have left the planet, they actually did get a good amount of experience with the Yautja culture, and interacting with many of them. Even many Yautja being able to say that the humans weren't what they first previously expected, and other Yautja actually being very surprised. Now, we do actually have a particular Yautja, who, they are very intrigued by the humans, and they saw the performance that particular human had during the festival. and they want to nurture that experience, possibly. See if it might be worth their time. Now, with that being said, we do actually have where that Yautja does decide that it may or may not track down the human. Or it may just decide to go to that human homeworld it heard rumors about. The Yautja deciding to do some digging and blasting off into space. Now, we do actually have over with Deku and his crew. As well, Deku, he did decide to sideline a bit of a trip out of the way. It won't take them very long. The planet is moving towards their destination back to the human homeworlds. A lot of the crewmates Deku does deal with, he does hear about how, oh yeah, many of them, they're going to go crazy on the next couple months inside the ship. Since, oh yeah, we just got to stay here for about, almost 2 weeks, and now we're going back into space? That being something that Deku, he does try to calm his crew down with. However, they're not exactly too keen on this idea. But whenever Deku does talk about how, oh, it's not really going to be that long, we're only going to be in space up until we head to this planet, which is only a few weeks out, and we'll be fine. A lot of people, they're kind of concerned, since they don't exactly know how long a few weeks out could be. They don't know if Deku's talking about 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 8 weeks, 12. It could be anywhere from, 14 days to 6 months. And that's what troubles them. However, thanks to a lot of the new toys and tech they got from Yautja Prime, you do have where at least people have something to pass their time with. And a lot of people, they do share their hunting stories, and they do at least try to practice on some Yautja things they've found out themselves. Now, with that, Deku, he at least does participate in some of these things. And Aki herself, she does at least try to brush up the humans on a bit of what she does actually know. And while it does pass by some of the time, the rest of it is spent training, fighting, drinking, and just playing some random game. Now, they also do at least entertain themselves with some human media. And while that is something that Aki herself is very interested in, a lot of other people they do find particularly boring. And we do eventually have where they do arrive to the planet. And while they were on the way here, we do have one of the scientists who are aboard the ship. They've been working on something for the last couple weeks. Since Deku, he was talking about it. And well, yeah. Whenever they do basically arrive at the atmosphere, and the scientists come to present this tool to Deku, he does find it to be very intriguing. Since the scientists basically made a field generation belt. And the idea for this belt is very simple. You put it on and your entire body is covered in a force field. And nothing should be able to pass through it. However, the hard part is getting air to work with it, since you need to breathe through the force field. And while that was sort of a problem at first, eventually it was able to be done. However, Deku, he did at least go to the idea of just wearing his mask, but the scientist, it didn't want to have to worry about an oxygen supply, so they just continued to manufacture and work on things. Now, they did get it in the end, and it did take a bit of extra time. However, they were still happy with the end results. And whenever Deku and his crew, they do jump down to the planet, and they are wearing these force field belts, you do have where David himself, he is on the planet. And he is happy by what he is seeing, as he's able to take samples of the black goo and actually get a real close, in-depth look at the effects it does have on organic life. Him taking samples of everything he can, while Deku and the crew, they are at least trying to use the equipment that wasn't found inside the ship or has been installed to try and track down the engineer's trace. Since the area they're currently standing in, it is just underneath what looks like a docking station. And Deku can tell from the emissions in the atmosphere, or at least the strange chemicals they're finding, that there's gotta be something here. This is exactly where this thing landed. Everything in the higher atmosphere is telling us that this location here is exactly where the ship could have landed. The emissions in the atmosphere told them, and everything that was leading to this planet. They were able to catch a trail. And that's something that Deku he does like. It does show that the tech they do have does work, since this is current proof. And even David he is taking catalogs, or he's cataloging information and taking pictures of everything in his head. And that's something that he does try to keep personal and private. Since while he is ultimately a bit more intrigued by this strange beauty, he doesn't really know how to go about it. Yes, there are dead things. Yes, it's a tragic, horrifying thing that happened here. But there's a stillness of it all. The stillness of death. And the concept being so foreign to him. He understands the meaning of what happened here. This was annihilation. But he can't help but take some solace in this, some comfort. Many people, they don't know their creators. They don't know who created them. And at the same time, they don't know how their civilizations would end. But these people, they may have known those answers. They probably knew the moment they looked up in the sky that one day, and whatever the engineers dropped from their ship or used it to destroy this place, they used it. They knew their gods were angry. They knew their creators would kill them. They knew in the end how they would die. And that's something that David does find to be intriguing. Since many models of Android that are similar to his own, they've either been decommissioned or retired, or some have even been scrapped for materials to use. And that's something that David, he does actually have a bit of disdain for. He knows who his creators are, because they treat them poorly. And then there's, well, the engineers and their creations. Given the chance, the engineers wiped out humanity. Should they viewed him or them the exact same way? And that's something that David he does keep in mind. As while he is thinking many of these thoughts, he does go back to a few of the conversations he has had with people aboard, and even back on the planet. He's seen ugly things from people. He's seen the way they act and treat each other, not just him. And it does make him wonder more. That being what David is currently thinking. As through an entire pile of black goo, David he's reaching his hands down. And he actually is able to pull a canister free from the goo, as he's holding up what looks to be a vase and he's staring down at it. Now, Deku and everybody else, they do get back to the ship. And David, he does bring this thing as well. However, the outfit he is wearing, yeah. After everything is desanitized, David's clothing, they do at least go through the desanitizing process as well, since he was covered in that goo. And a lot of the human crew, they were skeptical as to whether or not these force shields, as they like to call them, they were actually 100%. And while the doctor did try to reassure people that David was not covered in the goo, they did still desanitize his possessions as an extra precaution. And David, he wasn't at all really caring about whether or not they were overreacting. He just complied and was able to get his samples. Now, we do actually have later, where Deku, after at least trying to follow the engineer trail a decent way through space, eventually the trail was cut off. They started picking up more and more different things. And while the emissions trail eventually did lead to another trail, it got mixed up with a few others that were most likely of different vessels passing through space. And Deku, after discovering this, Yeah. It's more or less, let's keep this marked down on our maps. There's an engineer trail here, and we can come back to it later. Since, yeah, that's how things are going to have to be for right now. Deku, he's really, really hoping to get back home and spend some actual time in a place where he can hunt something he wants to. And he just really misses that place. Well, it may not actually be a home, he can at least call it someplace close. He is also worried as to what exactly the captain may have been doing in his absence. Since, well, he wasn't officially the leader, he was the leader. Now, with that being said, a few more months would pass by, and while the occasional stop to a nearby planet does catch their interest, there's also at least the engineer trail, which they're able to mark down quite a bit of emissions trails on their way through space. And Deku, he at least does have one emissions trail that he does want to follow. One he knows for a fact might actually lead somewhere. The emissions trail the engineers left at Earth. More than likely, they're gonna find something there. And whatever it is, maybe they can find it, discover what happened here, discover what happened there. And that's something that Deku he does think about, as he's currently lying in his bed, and he's laying down. Him with a key who, she actually is resting her head on Deku's chest, asking him if he's thinking about something. Yeah, it's gonna take us a while to get back. About 2 months longer than we expected, right? It would almost be 4 years around that time. 4 years? Yeah, now that I think about it. It's, not as long as I thought. Still hurts. I understand that, Scar. But what do you expect to find? Answers? Maybe? Something. I just want something. I mean, granted, the Yautja, they're gonna want to see this stuff. They're gonna want to see the blood, get that, and we continue to hand over information. They're gonna give us resources for that. Just for blood. That's smart. It can give you a lot of bargaining power. Especially if they know you can make their prey more deadly. But what about you, Scar? Are you alright? Yeah, I'm fine. Your dad, he called recently. That's all. Really? What did he say? He heard we went to Yautja Prime. He's, a bit annoyed that we went, but I told him why. He didn't seem to be annoyed afterward. In fact, he was curious to know what happened there, since apparently a Yautja called him. I don't know, I never got the name, but I don't know, Aki. Your dad seems to be a bit more worried about you. Why would my father be more worried about me? I don't know. I mean, parents can do that sometimes, can't they, for Yautja? I know it's a human thing, but it doesn't seem that strange to you, does it? My father, he was always strange to me. Never affectionate. Never showing weakness to others. He does act different now, I guess, but overall, I don't know. Maybe he's trying better. Isn't that what you call it? Trying to be better? Error of his ways? Yeah, that's one way to put it. But I don't know. Maybe it's just all weird, Aki. You guys don't exactly do things the way we do. you consider us to be soft and too affectionate. Aki actually bringing her head up to Deku's. Her somewhat going to lean a bit forwards, talking about how she never said that was a bad thing. And she does actually like affection. Deku somewhat smiling at her, talking about how he does know that. Him even expressing that he does know that she also does like that silly genre for movies. She hated it so much at first. However, she does actually at least like the romantic comedies they still do possess. Aki going to make a snide remark about one of said romantic comedies. Now, Deku does express to her that there is at least more to that genre than just that silly old movie, and that there are actually even some outside of the genre she may actually like. As Deku, he does go to bring his hand up and reach for a remote. Him starting to click through a few other things, as he does at least see the current setup of movies. This one's old, bad sequel, bad sequel, bad sequel, bad sequel. It's just a pattern. Anyways, now, with that being said, Aki, she does actually at least continue talking with Deku, and trying to understand and express herself a bit more. As well, the two are currently going a bit back and forth on this little romantic heart-to-heart. We do currently have David in his lab, who he's trying to experiment on a few other things. He wants to see exactly how this strange black mutagen does work. And while he's tested it on a bit of the plant life he does have and some organic life he does have in the lab, he does at least try to ask around a bit more. He wants to know if anybody they may have anything he can test this on. And while many people they're very careful with the mutagen, you do at least have the way David he does hear people talking about it with him. Since many people talk about how David's the only one who's not going to be affected by it, so he doesn't really understand all the caution they are putting to it. And David he does want to stop and think about that for a minute. Since, in a way of thinking, the gods weren't immune to this stuff either, but he is. So, in a way, he must be above the gods. Now, the thought does go through David's mind. However, it does quickly go to pass, as he does at least go back to his research. And he does try to catalog the strange things the Gudas do, since it's all a matter of quantity, material, and exactly the effect and or at least the way the material would change once reacted to the goo. Since with the less you expose to it, it would break down. The more you expose to it, the more or faster it would break down. However, if it's complete soaked, essentially just you dipping it in the goo and pulling it right back out, there really isn't time for a breakdown, just a full mineral change or mutation. And that's something that David he does at least go to bring down, as we do currently have the current thing he's working on. David going to mix a few things around as he does go to look at the current generation he has made using the goo. This is a trial test, and it is something that he is curious to look at. Well, knowing the goo will help them in the far future, with at least most likely dealing with enemies, you do have what David's currently trying to do. He's trying to see how different forms of the goo react to life. That being what he is thinking whenever he does put this into an aerosolized bomb. He does want to test this out when he does get to a planet. However, he is also concerned for what it might exactly hit. Now, David, he does keep this bomb under heavy restriction, and he does at least make sure that it's in a place where it cannot be set off. Now, with that being said, eventually they would arrive back on the human planet. As whenever they do, Deku, he does see how well the place has changed. Since 11 plus 9, that's 20 months. that is about 1 year and 8 months. And Deku, after seeing the place, yeah, he is kind of surprised. The amount of people that have woken up must have been a lot, since this place went from being a small village to looking like a small industrial city. And that's something that Deku he does see on his approach down. As whenever the large ship does get in the higher atmosphere, Deku he does is going to put it in orbit with the Earthling ship. And whenever they do head down to the planet using the smaller ships, you do at least have the way people do react. Since, oh, the hunters are back, and they must have found something out in space. And that's something that Deku he is happy with. Since whenever him and his people got back, he did notice that at least a few extra people have started to embrace the ways of the Yautja. And while many of them they need tons of work, they are at least able to speak Yautja. Now, with that being said, I do hope you guys enjoyed, and have an amazing night. I'll catch you guys on the next part.